Let's talk about a story that starts out on a quiet lake in Wisconsin. It begins with a plan so simple, so completely ordinary, that nobody could have guessed it would spiral into one of the most baffling missing person cases you'll ever hear about.
I mean, think about it. A father, his kayak, and a simple plan to go watch the stars. There were no warning signs, absolutely no red flags. It was just a peaceful idea that would kick off an agonizing search and a truly shocking investigation.
So that's the big question, right? How does someone just disappear like that? It's a question that would haunt his family, his entire community, and a whole team of investigators. The first answer seemed tragic but simple, but the truth, well, as it started to bubble to the surface, it was way more complex and frankly more unsettling than anyone could have ever imagined.
So who are we talking about here? The man at the center of all this is Ryan Borgwardt, and by all accounts, he was the picture of stability. He was a carpenter, a devoted father to 3 kids, and even a volunteer firefighter. You know, a solid, hardworking guy, the kind of person you think you know inside and out.
And the plan? It was about as harmless as it gets. After going to church with his family, Ryan mentioned he might head out to the lake to see the Perseids. That's a huge summer tradition, right? Watching shooting stars from the water, it sounds so peaceful, almost perfect. Nothing about it set off any alarms.
But, that peaceful night, it didn't last. It gave way to an absolutely frantic morning. Ryan never came home. And just like that, the story flips from a quiet evening of stargazing to a potential tragedy unfolding on one of the deepest lakes in the entire state.
Okay, so let's just walk through the timeline here, because it paints a really clear and pretty chilling picture. The last message he sent home just said how beautiful the meteor shower was. By the next afternoon, his car is found, parked and locked. Then, his kayak is found, overturned. And Ryan, he's just gone.
Now this is where it gets really crucial, because all the initial clues told one very specific story. You've got an overturned kayak, personal stuff like his wallet and a fishing rod just floating in the water, and this is in a lake that's over 200 feet deep. It all points to a tragic accidental drowning. The conclusion felt logical, almost automatic.
And yeah, because of all that evidence, the search almost immediately shifted gears into what's called a recovery mission. See, they weren't looking for a survivor anymore. They were looking for a body. That's how certain everyone was that this was just a terrible, terrible accident.
But then, there was a problem. A big one. The lake, the place that was supposed to hold all the answers, gave them nothing. Just silence. Day after day, the search teams came up empty, and that simple story of an accident started to fall apart.
And I want you to really picture the scale of this effort. We're talking boats, divers, high-tech sonar scanning every inch of the lake bed. The community rallied, volunteers were out there searching, and still, not a single trace of him. The lake just wasn't giving up its secret, and with every passing day, the whole drowning idea felt less and less certain.
This is when a real pro, a search and recovery expert, someone who literally finds drowning victims for a living, eventually says the unthinkable. After weeks of getting nowhere, he suggests that maybe, just maybe, they were searching in the wrong place entirely. Maybe the answer wasn't in the lake at all.
And wow, was he right. The whole investigation was about to do a complete 180, not because of something they found in the water, but because of a single piece of data that popped up during a routine database check.
So investigators are digging, right? Looking for any possible lead they can find, running all these standard checks, and that's when they get a hit. A ping. Someone had officially run Ryan Borgwardt's name through a government system.
And this was the moment everything changed. Why on earth would Canadian border officials be running the name of a guy who supposedly drowned in a Wisconsin lake? At first, you think, okay, identity theft. But the timing, it was just too strange. All of a sudden, that drowning theory was on very, very thin ice.
And then came the clue that just blew the whole thing wide open. It turns out, months before all this, Ryan had reported his passport missing. He'd been issued a new one. And now, records were suggesting that this new passport had actually been used after the night he supposedly drowned. The case hadn't just changed, it had completely transformed. So just like that, it's a whole new ballgame. They weren't looking for a victim anymore. They were searching for a man who was very likely alive. This meant investigators had to go all the way back to square one and look at every single piece of evidence from a completely new and pretty startling perspective. What if the whole thing was staged? And check this out. This slide really shows you the two different realities here. The exact same clues can tell two totally different stories. The overturned kayak, it wasn't a sign of a tragedy, it was a prop. That floating wallet and fishing rod, not lost in some chaotic struggle, they were planted to set the scene. And the missing body? Well, it was missing because it was never in the water to begin with.
Okay, so if this was staged, the next big question is why? And with this new theory, investigators started digging, and a possible motive began to surface. Reports came out about growing financial stress, mounting credit card debt, the kind of pressure that can make a person feel trapped and sometimes consider doing something drastic.
You see, the mystery wasn't really about the evidence anymore. The physical clues, the kayak, the passport, they started to make a chilling kind of sense. The real mystery became a psychological one. Not what happened, but why. Why would a seemingly ordinary father and community guy construct such an elaborate deception?
And honestly, this is what makes a case like this so compelling, why it sticks with you. It forces us all to confront a really uncomfortable idea, that the people we see every day, our neighbors, friends, the people who seem so stable, they might be fighting silent battles we know absolutely nothing about. It's really a mystery of trust.
Yeah, this quote really hits home, doesn't it? It gets right to the heart of the emotional damage. For the family and the whole community, this shift was just devastating. A tragic accident, as heartbreaking as it is, at least offers a path for grief. But a staged disappearance, it just leaves behind this tangled mess of questions, confusion, and even betrayal, with no clear way to mourn or ever move on.
And that's really what we're left with, isn't it? This lingering question. Maybe the real story here isn't about the overturned kayak or the search of a deep, dark lake. The real mystery might be found in all the quiet, hidden planning, the months or maybe even years of decisions that led a man to paddle out into the night and just vanish from his